better. Hi guys, so today I've got me spirit jersey on. Let's bring you down slightly. There we go. Hi guys, so today I am going to share with you my top 5 tips for wheelchair users, or if you're going to Disneyland Paris with a wheelchair user. There's probably so many I could say, but these are just my top of the list, like information that I feel that is the best information I have to give. So number 1 is, so we'll get straight into it. Number 1 is get to the disabled spot early, especially for the fireworks in the evening. So they've recently changed the basically everything. So all of the rules. So you used to be able to go in with members of your family. Now it's 2 members and that's it. So I think it used to be 3 members, now it's 2 members, which caused us all sorts of issues. They do count a baby under 3. So, and I did find like other families, like a German family had 4 people with 1 person, but they wouldn't let us go because we were English. I don't know if that's whether they had a better argument than us, I don't know. But yeah, it just was very, it's 2, that's it. So I'd get there early. You can have 2 people with you per disability access pass. If you're in a wheelchair, you'll get a disability access pass and you'll be allowed into the wheelchair space. Now it's to the very left of the castle. So if you're facing the castle straight on from the front, it's to the left. You have to go round by a Frontierland slightly, so I'd ask a cast member how to get into there if you've never been before, and then you come round sort of by the front of the castle and you're straight in. I would say get there an hour before so that you can, if you have, so you can get your wheelchair user at the front so they can actually see, because the rules have changed. People used to be able to sit around the wheelchair users, now you have to stand up. There, I did notice people now are starting to take seating, so people had little fold up seats, they were the same height as the wheelchair user, which is absolutely great. And so people would be able to see, like, if they're in that back row. There is quite a big space for you to get into at the front, but on a busy night when the parks are full, and you know, you're noticing, if you see the red signs out that the park's full that day, I'd say at least an hour before. Basically you can sort of watch them set up really and sort of get to where you need to be and then get in and get the wheelchair users sorted. Often what we used to do is we used to get in, get Isla situated, because we all stand behind her wheelchair or sit round her, you know, put our like coats on the floor, and then one of us would go and get dinner and we'd eat dinner. So that's a good option. They're more than happy to let you out and back in again, as long as they've seen you prior to it, so just make sure you've spoke to that member of staff when you're leaving to say I'm with the person, you know, and then you're able to go and get dinner. Casey's Corner is quite an easy one to go and get dinner from, which does hot dogs and chips and things like that. Not great, but you can go anywhere really, but that's just the quickest, it's the closest I find for me. I find that's the closest quick service to get back round there, but you've got quite a few either way places to get food from. So yeah, so I definitely say get there an hour before for that. Generally the parades, if you aren't in a disabled spot, I'd say try and get whichever way the parade's coming from. So if the parade's coming up from your left, so you can again ask a cast member where the parade's going to come from to where you are around the park. Try and park the disabled person by a bin, and then you can stand by the other side of the disabled person. People will stand behind the disabled person, but it just means that, you know, you haven't got children trying to push in front. And I don't mean that in a bad way, my daughter's a child, I'm just saying, right? And then also, like, you haven't got people that are pushing that disabled person further and further in and overreaching where the disabled person is to see, because they do that, and it's very rude, but it does happen, and it's then very hard for the disabled person to see. But I find the bin gives that little bit of shelter from people, especially for my daughter. She likes that space, so then I can have my husband beside me. But what we did was we put my son's buggy beside him, and people were just looking over my son, they just didn't care less, but we were behind. But my son can sit up, he can move forward, whereas my daughter can't. So my daughter then had quite a big space around her. She gets quite fractious when she's left in spaces. When we're moving around, she's not so bad. When she's just left there, she feels very vulnerable. So I find a bin is really good. But there are disabled areas for the parade. They've moved them, but now it's in the circle for the 30th parade. There's a circle stages, and it's kind of comes back. So where Casey's Corner is, it's in front of Casey's Corner, sort of. And that's the best way I can explain it. And then to the entrance to Frontierland, it's right there on this sort of corner section. So it's not the greatest spot for a wheelchair user, but they do get a good view. They get plenty of interaction in front of them. There's a lot going on. They can see everything. They can see the fireworks on the castle. So it's a great spot. And when we were in the spot, they would only let 2 people in, which I think was really silly, them not letting. So it was just me and my daughter, not letting my husband and my son in, because my husband and son would sat on the bench behind the spot anyway. My son was fast asleep. My husband and son would have sat on the bench. There was no one on, but there was nobody in the disabled area but us. And it was a full day. So I just don't know whether we timed it. We got like I think we got the lunchtime show. We were sort of at lunch. So I just don't know whether or not we just hit it like the right time. And it was just that most people were at lunch, so they weren't there. I don't know, but it was just really weird. It's just really, the disabled area was just really empty. But we've never watched that show from the disabled area before. We've always gone to where the castle stages are and pushed the wheelchair up against the castle stage. Again, I finding a bench. Like my mum, when we last went, my mum was there, so she sat on the bench, and I had my daughter next to the bench, and then my husband, my Rowan was actually in the baby carrier. He was much smaller, so my husband and I, we tend to stand behind her, but my husband did stand to the left. But we had 2 great blokes that was sort of wanting to watch it, and they were being really respectful. So my husband stood back and they stood next to Isla, and they were really great guys, actually. They were a really lovely couple of guys. So like, you know, she was really happy, and they were like dancing away and giving her interaction. And that's really, really great to see somebody interacting with a disabled person, because they just love it. And she was having a great time, and they were dancing, and they were like holding her hand out to clap, and it was just really nice. So we had a really great time, and I don't think they know who they are anymore, but like, you know, I was really grateful to them. So she had a really great time there. So I do find like that's a good option as well, to get next to a bench, especially if you've got elderly people with you as well. Or you've been pushing a wheelchair around all day. My back tends to hurt. It's nice sometimes. I don't want to watch the parade. I'm quite happy to listen to music and just sit on the bench away from it all, and and let her enjoy it. So that's my tip number. That's the parade. So that's all of number 1. So number 2 is shows. Now, it's 50-50 on this one. So my ultimate goal is to say, you know, get to the show early, so you're guaranteed your wheelchair space, you're guaranteed your companion space next to them, you're guaranteed a good spot. And if they do also give you a bad spot, because sometimes they'll just do it in rows, if you want to sit in the middle, like they were giving me the first lot of rows and said, yeah, you can sit there, and I said, could I sit in the middle? Yeah, no problem. So if you're not happy where you're seated, even if you are with a wheelchair user, just ask to be moved sort of further along, because there's so much disabled seating in certain areas. There is so much. You can pretty much, you know, sometimes you can just take your pick, because you may be the only disabled person there, which is the thing. We've watched the Lion King show, and we've been the only wheelchair user there, and there's no one at the front, and we could have sat anywhere. Or there's been like, we've had the last space. So I would say, like, if you can get to the shows, get there early so that you can secure your wheelchair user their wheelchair spot. But, well, that's really when the park's at its maximum and it's full. If you can, I'd say sort of last shows of the day tend to be like the best times we've found. Like if we use the last shows of the day, we've never not got space at those last shows, even when it's uber busy. But saying that as well, you do have to be prepared to be split up, because you know, that's just one of those things. It's only one person per disabled user sitting in the same sort of area, but they will try and seat you as close as possible if you get there early. If you get there late, you might be split up, but you're at least still watching the show. But I have found that near enough 99% of the time, we've been able to rock up to the show literally just before it started and the last people are being seated, and we've managed to get a wheelchair spot, even if it might be like closest to the door. Often where you come in, you won't go back out again, you'll go through a different door out. So you know, and that's more accessible to get out than in when there's hordes of people. So don't think when you're walking through a door as well at Disney, oh my gosh, you know, this is going to be a nightmare to get out of. The doors are different. And I always step back and I just sit and relax and talk about the show with my daughter and let the hordes of people go, because I'm not in the same rush as they're in. You know, they might be in a rush to get to one of the big roller coasters or rush off to get to dinner. We're never in a rush when we go to Disney. We take it slowly and we take it all in and we get done what we can get done. So I would say, you know, that's just a few little tips there regarding shows. All of the shows, I just will add, are accessible. They're great at doing that, Disney. All of the shows, all of like the mini shows, there's like Disney's Film and Magic, which you might think, oh, that might not be accessible. It is. They're very good with their shows all over Disney. They've had extensive renovations of where the Lion King theatre is. A few years ago it was an outdoor theatre, it's now been made into an indoor theatre, so they can use that all year round. That's a really great addition. So yeah, that's a really fantastic addition. Even in the oh, I'm trying to think now, but there's a big restaurant, I can't think what it's called. I want to say Videotropolis, but that's not it at all. But there's a big restaurant next to Buzz Ride, and it's really big, and there's a stage in there that a lot of the schools use. Even there's 2 lots of disabled seating in there that you can go and sit and watch shows in there. So it's really great. It is really, really great. Same with all the character meet and greets as well. You will find all the character meet and greets are wheelchair accessible. They're really good at making sure of that as well. So I am now on to number 3. Now my number 3 is a tip for eating. Now most places do have a wheelchair table, and also if you go to a lot of the quick service restaurants, there are queues just for disabled people. So you normally have to take the wheelchair up, they see the wheelchair, they'll then serve you, then you can go and seat with the wheelchair. But I just find in Colonel Hattie's there's always somebody on the door. There's 4 tables that are large tables. I think they seat between 6 to 8 people, these tables. There's 4 right inside the door. You walk in and there's 4 tables. Now if you walk in that wheelchair and there's somebody already sitting to eat, they will move them. They'll get them out of those seats for you to sit. I just find Colonel Hattie's in Frontierland, I'm sure it's Frontierland, is really great. They do pasta, they do pizza, like lasagnas, salads. They're really great in there. There's also a disabled toilet. It's not like, you know, a changing space, but it is a disabled toilet. There is more than enough room outside of that toilet to do a full wheelchair turn as well. So, and it's down a corridor, it's super close to to where you're eating as well. And I find that the staff in there are really amenable. They take my husband up to the disabled queue, they will get my husband served quickly for my daughter, and I find that really fantastic. So that's my tip, that Colonel Hattie's, I find, is by far one of the best places to get a quick and easy meal, and it's no fuss if you've got a disabled person with you. So I just find that's my one restaurant tip. All the restaurants are great, but I just find we normally get seated there quickly, and we can eat quick. And when you've had a long day or it's freezing cold, you just want to have a hot coffee and get the kids a pizza or a lasagna yourself, or just sit in the warm. That's one of my go-to places to just go to, because I know I'm going to be able to get a table. And again, there's 4 next to each other, where a lot of places might just have the 1 table for disabled people. There's 4 now all together. They're all in the same spot. The staff are very aware in there, and it's just, I really do think that Disneyland have got that one thing for disabled people down there. Number 4, my tip number 4 is buses. So I have used Disney buses before, but this time staying on site, I don't know, it was just a little bit different to what it's been before. So I know personally that on their Disney buses, they're generally the same buses they have in around Marne Valley. So if you're going to the Ocean from Disneyland Paris, say, it's going to be the same sort of bus setup. So there isn't anything on the ground per se to say this is where the wheelchair users should be. Now in America, they have that very good. They have a complete section, they have a queue, they have all the spots, so you know that there's a wheelchair sign on the floor, you go and queue there. But I was told by a driver this time, make sure you're at the front, love, make sure you get right to the front, and so that the driver can see you. Now the driver will load you before anybody else, and you will come off after everybody. But there are 2 wheelchair spaces, and it doesn't matter if people rush on, because you can get on the back and the front, the driver will move them. But it just makes it easier for the driver to get the ramp down, to get you on, to get the ramp back up. They have to do that. You can't do it for them. They like to do that themselves. Often, sometimes when you actually get from the park to Disneyland, they will do the security around will help the driver, you know, to keep his shift running and get you on and off the bus. We'll get you up. Yes. Yeah, so, but yes, so the Disney buses have got 2 wheelchair spaces, so it's nothing to worry about. They will move people out of your way if they're in your way, and make sure that you get to the front. So where people are queuing, just go, right, that's where they're queuing. Go to the very front of them. And if you get looks, it doesn't matter. You know, if you get comments, don't worry about it. At the end of the day, you are doing what you've been told to do, and that's what I've been told to do, is to get the front of that queue. That's what I've been told to do, is to get the front of that queue. And then my tip number 5 is your is your access pass. Now, often if you go in on the Eurostar, you might get in at 4, you know, 3:30, 4 o'clock. You might get in early, you might get in later. But if you can get in at that sort of time, normally people rush off to their hotel. But if you can get the wheelchair user and one person of your party to actually go over to Walt Hollywood Studios and do your access pass in the afternoon, you can pre-do it online, and you just need to pick it up when you're actually in Disneyland Paris. It will save you an awful lot of time, because in the mornings it's so busy there. So that's just my little tip. If you can go in the afternoon or an evening when you've got in, maybe split up, one go and check in and one go and do your pass, which obviously you can pre-do online, so they've got all the information there, and you just do that on the app. Our park maps have all gone now, so everything's on the app, everything's accessible on the app. So that's really my top tips for you. If they've been useful, please let me know. Please do comment. Please like and subscribe. The next video up that I'm going to be doing after my lunch is just all of the disabled rides and all of the, in each park, what's accessible in your actual wheelchair. So thanks so much for watching. Big thumbs up. Please do like the page. Do like the video. Press the little notification bell so that you can get my next video. I'll try and link it onto this one. Thanks guys, bye.